Alistair of the Queen's Guard, a man carved from the very essence of discipline. His tall, broad-shouldered frame stood like an unyielding pillar outside Buckingham Palace, his scarlet tunic and bearskin hat immaculate, even under the relentless gaze of the London sun. Day in and day out, he remained a statue of stoicism, his eyes fixed on some distant point on the horizon, his hands steady on the polished rifle at his side. Tourists flocked to him, their cameras clicking incessantly, their voices a cacophony of admiration, curiosity, and occasional mockery. Yet, Alistair never flinched. His composure was legendary, a testament to years of rigorous training and an unshakable sense of duty. But London was a city of contrasts, where the grandeur of the palace stood in stark relief against the grime and grit of its backstreets. And from those shadows emerged Ratty Jack, a man whose name was whispered with a mix of disdain and fear. Jack was a creature of mischief and malice, his wiry frame and sharp features giving him the appearance of a feral animal. He had heard the tales of Alistair's unflappability, and the idea of cracking that stoic exterior had taken root in his mind like a weed. To Jack, it was a game, a cruel amusement to test the limits of the legendary guardsman. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the palace courtyard, Jack made his move. He sauntered up to Alistair, his hands tucked into the pockets of his tattered coat, a sly grin twisting his lips. The crowd of onlookers, sensing trouble, began to murmur and shuffle uneasily. Jack ignored them, his focus entirely on the unmoving figure before him. "Oi, statue!" Jack sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. He withdrew a grimy knife from his pocket, the blade catching the light as he waved it inches from Alistair's face. "Feeling brave today, are we?" Alistair's gaze remained fixed on the horizon, his expression unreadable. He had faced down far worse than a petty thug with a dull knife. His training had taught him the value of restraint, the importance of assessing a situation before acting. He registered the threat, noted the distance between them, and waited. Jack, however, was not a patient man. He pressed the blade closer, his grin widening as he sought a reaction. "Cat, got your tongue?" he taunted, his voice rising. The crowd held its breath, the tension thickening like a storm cloud. Still, Alistair stood like stone, his stillness a silent rebuke to Jack's provocations. It was then that a small figure broke through the throng, a little girl, no older than 7, with bright, curious eyes and a gap-toothed smile. In her hand, she clutched a single, vibrant red poppy, its petals a stark contrast to the gray cobblestones. She approached Alistair with the unself-conscious confidence of a child, her voice clear and sweet as she held out the flower. "For you, Mr. Soldier," she said. "It's pretty, like your coat." For the briefest of moments, Alistair's expression softened. He looked down at the child, her innocence a stark reminder of the world he had sworn to protect. Protocol dictated that he remain aloof, that he not engage with the public in such a manner. But her sincerity touched something deep within him, a flicker of warmth in the cold rigidity of his duty. It was that flicker that Jack seized upon. With a speed that belied his scrawny frame, he snatched the little girl's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. The crowd gasped, their murmurs turning to cries of alarm. The girl struggled, her eyes wide with fear as she tried to pull away. But Jack held fast. "Well, well," he cackled, his voice dripping with malice. "A little fan, is it?" Perhaps she carries some trinkets for me as well." He shook her roughly, his grin widening as he reveled in the chaos he had created. A change came over Alistair, subtle yet profound. The stillness that had defined him fractured, replaced by a barely contained intensity. He had endured insults, threats, even the proximity of a blade. But the sight of a child in distress, a child threatened, was a line he would not allow to be crossed. With a speed that belied his previous immobility, Alistair's hand shot out. The flat of his palm connected with Jack's cheek with a resounding crack, the sound echoing through the courtyard like a gunshot. Jack staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief. He crumpled to the cobblestones, his knife clattering beside him as he clutched his face. The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. They had never witnessed Alistair move, let alone strike someone. The epitome of composure had finally snapped. Jack lay there, stunned. He looked up at Alistair, his face a mask of rage and bewilderment. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. He, Ratty Jack, had been felled by a statue. The little girl, still clutching her poppy, ran to her mother, who had been frantically searching for her. She glanced back at Alistair, her eyes shining with hero worship. The crowd, emboldened by his actions, closed in around Jack, their faces united in disapproval. He saw their anger, their disgust, and he knew he was defeated. Without a word, he slunk away, disappearing into the shadows from whence he came. The courtyard erupted in applause. "Well done, guardsmen!" someone shouted. Others joined in, their voices rising in a chorus of admiration. Alistair, his composure regained, simply nodded. He retrieved his rifle and resumed his post, his face once again a mask of stoic discipline. But as he stood there, amidst the renewed hum of tourist chatter, Alistair's thoughts turned inward. He knew he had broken protocol. He knew there might be consequences. But he also knew he had done what was right. He had protected a child. The poppy the little girl had offered lay forgotten on the ground. Alistair bent, picked it up, and tucked it inside his tunic, close to his heart. It was a small, silent gesture, but one that spoke volumes. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Alistair reflected on the day's events. He had always valued his composure, his ability to remain calm under pressure. But today, he had learned a valuable lesson. There was a limit to patience. Sometimes, when faced with true injustice, when innocence was threatened, even the most stoic among us must act. True strength wasn't just about control. It was about knowing when to relinquish it. It was about standing for what was right, even if it meant breaking the rules. It was, ultimately, about humanity. This story reminds us that even the most patient and disciplined among us have a breaking point. It shows us that true strength isn't just about control, but also about knowing when to let go and act, especially when it comes to protecting the innocent. Sometimes, doing the right thing means going beyond what's expected, even if it means breaking the rules. It's a reminder that humanity should always come first. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear what you learned from it in the comments below. See you in the next one.